Hello. I want to thank you for watching this very important session, number 27, and welcome you to this particular session. Let us now consider the universal Christ. The concept of time and the measurement of its passing by humankind have been present on this planet for millennia. For as long as this has been so, and perhaps even before then, there have come among us from time to time those persons whose lives have been so exemplary that they have blessed and changed the lives of those around them to such a degree that their ideas and ideals continued in a positive way to affect the lives of others long after they had left this mortal shell behind and gone on to higher realms. The names of many such persons have been long lost in the mist of time as the ages have rolled by. More recently, the names of some have been remembered, repeated by word of mouth, then later written down, century after century, to the present day. A bit later I will mention a few of them. Excuse me. Depending upon the culture and traditions under which one has lived, the names and times of those special persons may differ. I suspect, however, that many of the stories are similar to one degree or another. The speaker has lived under Western tradition with rather strong Judeo-Christian influence in the upbringing process. Therefore, the focus in that area should not be surprising. A life under other traditions would likely have brought forth the names of different personalities as examples of the above. But the concept would be the same, and some of the stories perhaps even somewhat similar. Each human person is born with the essence, or seed, for lack of a better word, of the universal Christ within themselves. To what degree that seed even begins to germinate within a person, much less completes that process and begins to grow toward maturity, depends upon the decisions made by that person within their lifetime, and by decisions made by that personality in previous incarnations, the sum total of which constitutes the previous preparation, the current spiritual state, and the potential for spiritual growth of the individual person being considered. Throughout time, a very exceedingly small, very exceedingly small, number of those persons, because of many right decisions over many lifetimes, are born with the potential in a particular lifetime to experience the germination, so to speak, and growth of the universal Christ within them to such a degree that they actually experience a oneness with the manifestation of the then fully mature universal Christ Spirit within themselves. The spirit of that person becomes one with the spirit of the universal Christ. They experience Christhood, or become Christed. This is an extremely difficult path for someone to follow in their life, and especially to do so to the degree necessary to experience such a manifestation of Christhood. As you might imagine, as stated previously, there have been exceedingly few who have had such a blessing. This speaker does not pretend to know all their names, but it can be said, however, that among those have been the masters Zoroaster, Moses, Buddha, and Jesus, to name just some of those select few. There are, without question, many people today who feel that it's impossible to attain such a high spiritual state in our modern times. Let me say again, however, that if you have access to a Judeo-Christian Bible, you will be able to see otherwise. The universal Christ Spirit, who had created a state of oneness with the Master Jesus, taught that greater things than those which had been done would be done. This is stated in the Judeo-Christian Bible, Book of John 14:12, and its meaning is this: that which the Master Jesus had attained, and even greater things, others could and would attain also. Because of its great importance, I will here also say once again that contrary to the understanding of many followers of Christianity, this does not exclude Christhood. Most people who have read that biblical verse do not realize that such things are still possible today. Be aware that Christhood is, or should be, the ultimate goal of everyone who is an aspirant desiring to be a true seeker, or who seeks to be a true seeker. It must be stated, however, that prior to the most recent 40-year period, only one person among those who received this very special blessing of Christhood was actually born into a state of oneness with the fully mature universal Christ Spirit. In other words, the Christ Spirit did not have to grow and germinate. They were born with the mature Christ Spirit. The Master Jesus was that person, the first person who had ever become one with the mature universal Christ Spirit at the moment of birth. All of the others who reached Christhood attained that state of oneness at some later point in their lives, when they became worthy and ready to receive that great blessing. Excuse me. Now, once again, the consciousness and understanding of humankind has been raised sufficiently, and the need is such that the earth is ready for another of God's messengers to come and once again unveil and reveal to us yet another, even higher level of truth that will help to bring us to yet another higher level of understanding of God's universe. I have touched on this subject in other sessions, but I will restate these extremely important points of information once again at this time. This person's message that I'm speaking of will not be just for the Jews, or for the Arabs, or for the North or South Americans, or for the Africans, the Europeans, or the Asians. The message will be for all of them, and for all the people of the world, for all of humankind. For the purpose of bringing God's message to these times, to all the world, there is on this planet, on earth today, now, one who has, like the Master Jesus, been in a state of complete oneness with the universal Christ Spirit since the moment of birth. That person's name or place of residence, or when that person's work will begin in earnest, I do not have any idea, nor does any other living person, with the possible exception of the parents of this person, who may know that their child is Christ, but even their having that knowledge at this time is not a certainty. This person is one with the universal Christ Spirit, just as the beloved Master Jesus was in his time approximately 2,000 years ago. Furthermore, just as the beloved Master Jesus was the master of and God's messenger for the Piscean, or some call it the Piscean age, this person who is alive, growing, maturing, and preparing on our planet today is the master and God's messenger to the entire world for the Aquarian age. When this person's ministry or work begins in earnest, this master will lay the spiritual foundation for future humankind. When that work is done, this messenger of God will then leave us, and those who are so chosen will remain here for a time to build upon that spiritual foundation that has been laid down by this person. This will allow humankind in the years following to continue on the path away from the materialism of today and back to a far greater sense of love and brotherhood and sisterhood, and even more importantly, to stay on the path that leads back to God, the source, the true Father of us all. As it was in the time of the Master Jesus, the Christ, those who will not recognize God's messenger as the universal Christ, those who will persecute and despise this person most, will be those among the most devoutly religious of our day. The reason for this is because of the fact that there are so many persons in the world today who expect the return of the man Jesus rather than the return of the universal Christ Spirit. This universal Christ Spirit, who once again, as it happened with the Master Jesus, has come here to this planet with the birth of a human child, and in a state of oneness with the spirit of this child, just as it was done before, and just as it will be done again, at least one additional time far in the future. Sadly, even if the man Jesus were to return today to this earth, neither would those same people recognize him, especially if he did not espouse their particular doctrine, and so would they therefore persecute and despise him again today, as others like them did approximately 2,000 years ago. Perhaps these doubters would need to see a bright halo around the top of his head to show them a sign before they would believe. But such a halo is not visible to normal physical eyesight. If it were, they certainly would not have crucified the Master Jesus when they did, because there wouldn't have been any doubt at all to everyone who saw him that he was a very special man. Such a halo is visible, however, only to those who have eyes to see, and so therefore will a great many of the most devout and religious of the day fail to recognize the presence of the beloved universal Christ Spirit yet again. How sad. The beloved Master Jesus has completed his work upon our planet, first as the master of the Piscean or Piscean age, the man whose spirit was one with the universal Christ Spirit. He has since acted in a spiritual capacity for approximately the last 2,000 years as our planetary Logos. The man Jesus, who was one with the universal Christ and who therefore was the Christ, has no need to return to this earth in physical form. When it was spoken that he would return, the he of whom it was spoken was the universal Christ Spirit, who, in a state of oneness with the spirit of the man Jesus, occupied that body at that time. It was the return of the universal Christ Spirit that was being spoken of then, not the return of the man Jesus, even though Jesus was one with the universal Christ Spirit at that time and was therefore the Christ. When the master of the Aquarian age has completed all of the necessary work here in the physical body, that master will then become our planetary Logos, and the beloved Master Jesus will go on to become the Holy Solar Logos, the spiritual force behind our physical sun in this solar system. The universal Christ Spirit is a spiritual force behind the great central sun of God's universe. This is the way of these things. So many would ask today, do I speak blasphemy or truth? So many will already think they know the answer to that question. For some who see and hear what's been spoken here, these words will seem to have no basis in truth and will be considered instead as blasphemy. For a growing number of people around the world, however, what is written here makes perfect sense. What is spoken here makes perfect sense also. And some may even find, as they listen, that these words, which are truth for them, strike a resonant chord within their being. It is especially for these latter persons that this series of spiritually oriented videos has been created. It is not for everyone, but it is for them, and also for others who may be somewhere in between in their thinking and in their searching for answers that will somehow make sense to them. For all of them that these videos have been made and put forth. It's for the entire planet, however, that the universal Christ, the master of the Aquarian age, and God's messenger for the Aquarian age, has come. And it's for the entire planet that this messenger of God will work as stated to lay the spiritual foundation for the future of our world and for all of us who reside upon it. This spiritual foundation will then become the covenant, or the basis upon which will be built the future society for all of humankind on the planet Earth for more than 1,000 years to come. And the master of this age, the universal Christ, will once again be the cornerstone. There should be no doubt about that. Thank you for watching this very important message. The next video session, number 28, will consider some of the signs of the times that we're seeing these days. I invite you to watch, and I thank you very much for watching this session.